Hello and welcome back to the DF Retro Super Show. I'm your host, John Lindeman, and I'm joined once again by my two co-hosts of the moment. First, Mark Triforce Duddleson.
Hey, am I not the Virtual Boy anymore?
Well, you are wearing Virtual Boy red, so if you're watching the video, you're seeing it, so... But you know who's not changed and still truly great? The man himself, Coury Carlson, who's also here.
I'm here, and you're not. Neither of you guys are here.
I know.
That's true.
There was a hectic few weeks of people hanging out in Coury's basement.
Yes.
That's true. But thankfully, you guys are wearing both red. We got Tri in red, Coury in yellow, so we got that red and yellow, brother. You know, it's...
Ketchup and mustard.
All right. So, we have a good show for you today because we're going to talk about one game and sort of the things around it. It's Sunset Riders. It's one of my favorite action games from the early 90s. It's a beautiful Konami classic with some excellent action. But did you know it got a sequel? A lot of people may not realize it, but it did actually get sort of almost two sequels, but there is one that's actually like a true follow-up. And we're going to talk about all of this stuff today, as well as the ports. And we're even going to talk a little bit about the unfinished sort of in-progress Mega Drive port that was being done. There's a lot to talk about. But first, before we dive in, this show is brought to you by the DF Retro Patreon or the Digital Foundry Patreon. So if you haven't had a chance, go check us out at digitalfoundry.net. We got our site over there. There's cool stuff happening. Come hang out with us on the Discord. And of course, making this show possible. And when we do the Q&A shows, you can ask questions even. That's always fun, right?
I mean, the Q&A show for the main DF Direct weekly is, kind of maybe my favorite part of that as well. I love hearing that stuff.
Let's go. All right. But before we dive into Sunset Riders, we have a few news items and sort of tidbits to talk about. So let's go ahead and dive into that.
This video is brought to you by PlayTracker, an app that connects to your various gaming platform accounts to combine and manage all your data in one easy-to-use place. PlayTracker pulls everything together, your playtime, achievements and statistics. You earn XP, level up and unlock rewards by tracking your entire cross-platform game library in a single unified profile, creating a monument to your gaming career. In addition to that, you can connect with all of your gaming friends regardless of platform, show off your genre expertise by earning guild badges and even participate in giveaways by completing challenges. It supports linking with all major platforms like Steam, Xbox, PlayStation and Nintendo, but crucially for fans of DF Retro, it also fully supports retro achievements. To find out more, head to playtracker.net/digitalfoundry or click the link in the video description below.
It's time for the news indeed. And this week we've got some bangers. Actually, one of the first things I want to talk about is something I've been waiting for a while. It finally came out. I haven't finished it yet, but man, is it good. It's a documentary from one of my favorite YouTube channels, Pandemonium, the man who has attempted to review all the Sega Saturn games released in the US, but has been sidetracked by making awesome documentaries instead, while only tangentially reviewing the Saturn games. This one's called Digging for Isix, and it's about digital pictures. And this is really interesting because you guys contributed because, well, you also did a documentary on digital pictures for the Night Trap release some years ago. And this one goes even deeper across the full history of digital pictures up until, I guess, Double Switch and everything else that happened to them. And I don't like digital pictures games like at all. But I think they're super, super interesting. And the topic is just like, it's a gold mine of fascination. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, have you guys had a chance to watch through this? Like, what's your take on everything, especially given that you have a history with it?
I knew this was in the works for a long time because I had talked to Pandemonium about a year and a half ago. I provided him a bunch of stuff that we shot for the Night Trap documentary that we did. And I helped him get connected with Tyler Hogle, who had all of this archival material. And he's just been working on it for the last year and a half. And, that culminated in a nearly 8-hour documentary. Because, I mean, it's a documentary / review of Double Switch. So it starts out, the first like several hours are, like some like leading up to the release of Double Switch, like all this digital pictures history and stuff. And then he reviews Double Switch. And then he does some more digital picture stuff. And then he ends up reviewing a second game, an unreleased game that was, I believe it was like completed and leaked, called Maximum Surge.
Which I've played, by the way, back in the 90s.
Yeah. Oh, so, okay. So,
yeah,
I mean,
because there was just for those that aren't aware, Digital Pictures sent out demo discs for the PC back in the mid 90s. And I got one of them in the mail. And on that disc is a playable build of Maximum Surge, right? And I remember playing it and thinking, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, compared to usual Digital Pictures, it was reminding me more of like Rebel Assault or something, right? It's a little more interactive. But then it disappeared and I forgot about it for years. And then it all started to come up again here through this and other things. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've played that. And I actually did dig out the demo disc and I still got it. It's really weird.
That's awesome. So I haven't watched the whole thing. I've watched it in chunks, but I did during his premiere. I kept it on the TV the whole time. Like I kept it streaming just because, I was in and out of the house all day, but I wanted him to get those retention numbers too. He deserves those retention numbers for something like doing something so immense as this. So, I mean, it was funny because every time I'd like come back in, I'm like, oh, now he's doing this. And I happened to walk in just as he was announcing he was going to review this, review Maximum Surge, and the whole chat is like, what? No way. Like everyone was really shocked that this was going to happen. So yeah, it came out, beyond my like greatest expectations for it. And I think it's really awesome that he did the whole thing in 4:3, since all the video that he had was all 4:3. So why not? Right. So it's huge work of passion. And, I can't even imagine, making something this long and this in depth.
I know.
But
someone that's made a nearly 4-hour video before, that almost killed me. And it's like, it would be fun to do a project like this where you have like a long time to work on it, but it's really not feasible, right? Because like, I mean, you know how it is in the YouTube business. So it's really cool that he was able to find a way to make this possible and actually do it. Because I think the results are just incredible. And it's so super specific for just the select number of sickos out there.
Yeah. And I mean, Pandemonium's great at this kind of thing because he is in his day job. He works in news. So he's very good at putting together pieces like this. He really lets things breathe. He shows a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And, it does not feel rushed in any way. I mean, at 8 hours, it doesn't feel rushed. It shouldn't feel rushed at 8 hours. But I appreciate that he just used everything at his disposal for this.
But John, I got to ask, have you tried any of the like modern versions of the Digital Pictures games? I've only really played Night Trap, but I find it to actually be surprisingly fun. I played that back when it came out, with my Backloggery stream co-host Drumble, and he especially went in with extremely negative expectations. And by the end of it, he's like, "Oh man, we gotta get all the different endings. We gotta see all the scenes." Like, we got really into it. For a game that, has a reputation. So like, I don't know. Like, I think the modern versions can make them feel a little snappier than the Sega CD originals. And I think there's some genuine entertainment to be had there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I actually don't dislike Night Trap. I think that's probably one of the most interesting ones. And I have played it and I do like it. I think where they fell down is when they got into the more action-y stuff, where they attempted to simulate real-time actions, like, a Supreme Warrior, and obviously, we've got Scottie Pippen, Slam City, which I love conceptually, but to play it is a nightmare. There's also Quarterback Attack with Mike Ditka.
I think Coury kind of loves Quarterback.
Not Quarterback Attack. Wait, is it Quarterback Attack? Yeah, it's Quarterback Attack. Yeah. Claim did a Quarterback Club, but that's what it was.
Right. but it is Mike Ditka's Quarterback Attack. And, I never really played it until like the last handful of years and ended up thought it was pretty fun.
The thing is, though, one of the things I took from the documentary is like how Sega really grabbed on to what Digital Pictures was doing, and that influenced their approach to the Sega CD. And I wonder if, in retrospect, if that was a mistake, because I think largely that stuff wasn't actually that good on there.
The PC Engine CD approach was much better, right?
Yeah.
Where they had more like normal games, but just used the storage capacity for
but
bigger
that's
graphics,
what I mean.
bigger sound.
That's the point, though. It's like in Japan, that's what they did on the Mega CD.
Well, true.
There wasn't really FMV games in Japan, like barely.
Yeah.
Like nobody was doing that.
Sega of America had more
deal.
sway in terms of like what was produced.
And I actually think they ultimately hurt the system by focusing on these FMV games, which are largely not good. Like I think Night Trap was cool, but a lot of this stuff just doesn't work, and it hurt the system in the long run. And the FMV genre didn't have much. It didn't have legs for good reasons, but it was also interesting and experimental. And we kind of figured out later, like what works, what doesn't, where FMV makes sense and where it doesn't. So I still think it's cool. It's a weird part of history, but either way, check out that video. It's freaking awesome. Maybe we'll have him on at some point and talk about more Digital Pictures but I don't know. I'm sure most of what could be said is already said in that 8-hour video. So I don't know. But either way, maybe FMV games in general would be a fun topic. Next piece of news I want to talk about. I've played a bit of this. You put in some time. It's the decompilation of The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, which finally has an official PC, Android, I think Mac port.
Everything. It's Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, iOS. It's insane. They launched it. They launched version 1.0 on all those platforms, and it's really, really good. The beginning of Twilight Princess, I remembered it being pretty slow and a bit boring, and it does take a while to get going. So I have put in several hours. I streamed it on the Imlig YouTube stream. And I continued to play a bit past that. I played through the first temple, got to Hyrule Field, and it just works great. No issues really. So I have to say, I think it's maybe the best presentation I've ever seen for a decomp port, just in terms of the user experience. Literally all you have to do when you open it up. I play it on Bazite, Linux. So it's just an app image. You open it up and boom, you select your ISO. For now, it has to be the GameCube version. They said they are working on making it possible to build it through the Wii version or the Wii U version. But right now you do have to use a GameCube ISO. And then it's just ready to go. It's just ready to go. The interface is great. It's really easy to use with a controller, and this stood out to me. It's such a nice touch. I feel like so many things like this ignore sort of the impact that things like sound effects can have on a menu, and just making it feel good to use and feel like a buttoned up, polished professional experience. And so you've got these like Zelda sound effects as you're like scrolling through the menu here with your controller, or you can use it with your mouse if you want. The only critique I'd make about like the menu presentation is that if you're outputting it 4K, it becomes very tiny at full screen. But it's very easy to render it at super high resolutions. Super sample down to your output resolution. It's great. Controller support is excellent. I used Steam Input to play with the GameCube Switch 2 controller. Last I checked, I don't think Switch 2 controllers worked on Steam wirelessly, but they do work wired. And the fun thing is that the GameCube Switch 2 controller has, for some unnecessary reason, gyro. So since this port actually has gyro support, no doubt inspired by the Wii and Wii U version, not for swinging your sword, but for aiming. So anytime, if you want to use gyro, anytime the game goes into first-person view, whether that's just for, hitting up on the C stick and looking around, or going into like the slingshot or other aiming interfaces. Gyro is automatically engaged, and I use Steam input to map gyro to mouse, and you can choose the corresponding setting in this decomp port. And yeah, it feels really great to play it with a GameCube controller with that gyro. I mean, it's very, very good, and it's also compatible with a high-res texture pack, a 4K texture pack that's already out there, which is kind of impressive. Some of the footage I recorded uses that texture pack. So yeah, I mean, it's early days for this, I'm sure, but I think, advancements to the mod, or advancements to the port, advancements to different mods people are going to no doubt create for it. It's going to be pretty much the ultimate way to play the game. And it like many other decomp ports, it runs at 30 frames per second underneath, so that the game logic doesn't break, but it's not like frame gen interpolation, but like, I don't fully understand, but like the actual like polygon positions are interpolated so that it perceives as the game is running at, 60 FPS, 120 FPS, whatever you want.
You said it was called like matrix interpolation or something like that?
That's the term I've heard used. I don't know if it's exactly the same technique used in this, but I don't really understand it, but it works great, and the game doesn't feel laggy, even though the underlying logic is 30. Running at 120 FPS feels excellent. So yeah, this is just fantastic. I've played through the game twice on the Wii before, and so I think I'll probably wait a while for some advancements to be made to this port. But it's releasing in a shockingly excellent state. The only thing I would say is really missing is support for high-res font. I don't remember exactly what they said. There were some developers in our stream chat, and I want to say they said that they're going to be working on that. Because that makes a big difference in like the Ocarina of Time decomp, and also, that problem might just solve itself once you can build the game with the Wii U version. And you can then like use like the official high-res textures, which are not as sharp as the fan-made patch, but fan-made pack.
Cool.
But, it's awesome. It's already in a great state. Go check it out.
My only complaint is that it doesn't seem to have downsampling support, which I would have liked, because my main issue is that I feel like the polygon count of the game is very low. It's a very boxy looking game, and when you run it in high resolution, like, it just reveals how simple the underlying geometry is. I would like to be able to downsample it and have like a lower resolution, but like clean lines, Also, support for the Japanese version would be nice, because I'd like to see what that's like in that language as well. Currently, it's just the European and American GameCube ISOs. Either way, super cool thing. You're right. So definitely worth checking out. So next up then, a little thing, Try. You wrote, can we better document video game release dates? Explain what you mean here, because I do agree, actually, and especially in the West, the documentation of this stuff is horrible.
Sometime in the past year or two, there was a GameSack episode where he actually mentioned, I forget what game it was, but he's like, if you go to Wikipedia, this says it was released this date, but like I actually like document like when I bought these games, and this is wrong on Wikipedia. And that kind of got me thinking, because I have long thought that one of my most consequential gaming memories had to have taken place sooner than Wikipedia said. And that is when I played the N64 at Toys R Us, when I bought my pre-ordered copy of Kirby Superstar for the Super Nintendo in September 1996. You go to Wikipedia, it says it was released on September 20th, which was very, very, very shortly before the N64 released. And I remember it being weeks before the N64 released that I actually played it in Toys R Us. And my mom has been kind of doing some spring cleaning, and gave me a tub of stuff. She's like, look through this, tell me what you want to keep and what you don't want to. I have no memory of this, but this was some journaling that I seem to have had to have done for 7th grade. And the very The very first entry in this says, last Thursday, I was at Toys R Us. I was buying Kirby Superstar for my Super Nintendo and, describe how I played the N64 there. This journal entry is listed Monday, September 9th, 1996. And if you go back and see what day Thursday was, that was September 5th. So more than 2 weeks before Wikipedia says. And so it just got me thinking. Now, back in those days, I don't know if y'all remember, we all grew up on the East Coast in Eastern Standard Time. I feel like didn't always get games quite as quickly as people who lived on the West Coast. Do y'all have a memory of that? It used to be the ship date, and I remember
100%.
I remember some stores in the East Coast would get games like 1 day after the ship date. A lot of other stores got them 2 days after the ship date. So it wasn't as tightly, controlled as it was back then. But regardless, here is, of all things, a Nintendo published game in the second half of the 90s when gaming was a very established industry. And Wikipedia has had a release date that I knew was wrong for years. And I finally found like personal documented proof that it is wrong. And so if, something like a first party Nintendo game from the late 90s can be wrong, like what else is wrong, right? And we just had difficulty with our GBA episode verifying, like, was this game a launch game or was it just released soon after launch? So these things matter for the kind of work that we do, right? And so I don't have any answers to this, but I just thought it was a fun thing that I found, and I just wanted to put it out there in the world in case someone hearing this thought I have lots of documentation on this stuff. I can help.
One of my favorite things to do for looking for old release dates is to go through like archived newsgroup posts, because there's a lot of like really interesting bits where people say, "Oh, I bought this game on this day," and then other people are saying, "Well, it hasn't even released yet. How is that even possible?" Because it would just release in different places throughout the country over time. That's a great resource for finding some of that. It's very similar to Try's Notebook.
Yeah, but it's online.
Yeah. What I will note, though, is that it seems like the Japanese release dates are largely much better. And I actually found a great resource for those. I use heavily, there's this series of books called The Perfect Catalog. I know at least one of the main editors was Maeda Hiroyuki. But they're like from Gmooc, it says. But I bought a bunch of these and I enjoyed reading through them. But they actually have a little screenshot and information for every single game for every console. So if you buy the PlayStation Perfect catalog, for instance, the first volume is 1994 to 1998, and then the second volume is like the rest of it. And if you look through it, not only does it document all the different pieces of hardware that existed and all the history and stuff, it actually has every single game in there, and they all have release dates, and they're all organized chronologically. And from what I can tell, their release date data seems to be quite accurate. And I assume it's based on what must have been better cataloged back then, because it was a much smaller market than like America, where things were huge, right?
It's in part, due to Japanese culture of probably just organizing things better, doing things better, and also just smaller countries, single time zone, right?
That was really useful for understanding when things were released. And they got books, by the way, for when they got Dreamcast, PC Engine, Wii U, Super Famicom, DS, Game Boy, Saturn, Famicom, PlayStation 2, 360, PS3, GameCube, PSP, etc., Mega Drive, like so much. Even the original Xbox is in there, N64, MSX, PC 9801, like stuff like this is all in there. It's so good. They actually did a perfect catalog for Casio stuff. They got Casio Game Key. So they got, like the Casio Loopy on the cover. So either way, very, very cool collection of books there.
I wonder if they're really expensive to get.
They're about $20 or less.
Oh, that's
a
not
piece. Bad. All right. One more thing on the news list that I see here is the 32-inch CRT update. let me basically, for those listening here, Coury recently, through I guess a friend or some kind of relationship, ended up with these two gorgeous 32-inch 90s era Sony Trinitrons. They're in beautiful shape. We actually spent time with them when I was in the US, going through the service menu and basically tweaking them and cleaning them up and making them look great. And now I'm seeing there's an update on it. So I need to know, what's the update?
It's not so much an update as the fact that there's been people posting in the comments saying, hey, can you give us an update of what ended up happening with them?
Oh, okay.
So I think people just wanted to kind of have some sort of resolution to that story. So I got them both to the house. Took two SUVs to get them in the stands here in one trip. Thankfully, the stands are very robust, and that made it really easy to get them into the garage. We just put together the stands, and we just slid the TVs off onto the stands and rolled them into the garage. They remained for several weeks until John was here, and then you're like, I want to check these out. And that was immediately after we recorded the last episode, I think. And then you're like, oh, the saturation is all cranked up on these. So we spent a while trying to use my universal remote to try to get into the menus. And then you're able to find out the service menu combination. And then you fix them both up that way. And so I was not going to keep one initially. I knew if I got one down to the basement, it was not going anywhere. But then John was like, I'll help you take this downstairs if you want to do it.
Oh, yeah.
So we didn't really have much of a problem getting it down here, I think, with the two of us both working on it.
It wasn't that difficult.
Got hooked up. You played some random games on the Mister. You played the game that was from the Pac-Man creator. I forgot what it was. It was some
Libble Rabble.
Oh, Ribble Rabble. Yeah, John showed me all about that when I was at John's house.
I spread the word of Libble Rabble wherever I can.
I went up to Coury's house, and John and I missed each other by 2 days. Totally coincidence with our travel schedules. So yeah, I took that other one, put it in the back of my Subaru Forester, and drove it all up and down the mountains of West Virginia to Steve's house. Steve from the YouTube channel Retro Tech, where it is now in his queue for tuning up and RGB modding. That's kind of the thing about these sets. They're from 1998, and they're composite and S video, no RGB. Of course, the S video looks fantastic, but I'm looking for this to kind of be my long-term primary CRT. So I want it to be RGB modded so that I can play in RGB while capturing in RGB, through RetroTink upscaling and stuff. So yeah, I'm really excited for whenever this gets done. And Steve says these Sony Trinitron consumer models like this one always turn out great with an RGB mod. So I am very excited. I will be heading up to Steve's to get it back here as soon as possible.
He's going to have to come here to mod mine, though, because it's not coming out of this basement.
They really are heavy. I'm used to moving 27-inch CRTs around on my own, no problem. They're heavy, but it's not a big deal. But you go up to 32, and it's just yeah, that's probably gonna hurt my back if I try to do this. So they're significantly heavier.
I worry about you, John, because you move some big CRTs by yourself, and I worry about you.
I know. I try to use proper lifting technique at least, but you're right.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to. I've kind of resigned myself to having to hire some movers to get that upstairs once I get that to my house, because I don't think I have it in me to risk the well-being of my friends and family over getting this CRT up here to this room.
What you should look into is perhaps finding people that specialize in moving pianos. There's like a specific kind of a mover.
Oh, I bet they're more expensive.
All good. I still have the stands though. John was trying to talk me into bringing the stand downstairs. I'm not sure if I'm gonna.
I was trying to talk you into it too. I was like, that corner where your guitar is like that.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's perfect.
The recliner swivels to that corner. It would be so good.
And the stand can turn if you need to.
I don't want it to stick out from where, like, if it fits in that corner, I wouldn't want it like to protrude.
Coury doesn't like catty corner.
It's just I would have to change a lot of stuff, and I'm okay where it is.
Meanwhile, my NEC's still in the shop, and hopefully one of these days it will be repaired and saved. I can only dream. For now, the old Wega back there, as I like to call it, it's getting me along. It's a good size, but all right.
Hanging out on that tempered glass.
Hanging out on the tempered glass. Been there, I've never had tempered glass break on me yet. Knock on wood.
Knock on tempered glass.
Knock on tempered glass. Just don't knock the corner of it. All right. That's the news, though, gents. That's pretty fun. There's some good stuff in there for sure. But for now, I'm ready to go back to the Old West and talk about some cowboys. Rewind with me, if you will, back to sometime around 92, right? There's a bowling alley. It's Cincinnati, Ohio, right? I live in a place called Green Township, which is right on the border of Cheviot. Near there's a place called Doc Holliday's, and that's also part of a bowling alley. At that bowling alley, there was a machine there, right? There was a machine, and I remember going there to bowl, but this machine caught my eye because it was an arcade game. Obviously, especially at that age, I was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. And I go over there, it's Sunset Riders. There's 4 control panels. This to me is like, oh wow. It's like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game that I love so much. 4 players. I grab a quarter, pull up to one of them, pop that quarter in, and I begin to play. And right then and there, I'm like, all right, I like this game. I never forgot that. That first experience with Sunset Riders there, the look of the visuals, the colors, the movement. To me, it was like this evolution of the Contra formula that I loved, but with it's a bit more visceral, if you will, a little bit more in your face. It was a game that I really enjoyed, and I would play it every time I saw that machine. And up until now, it's one of those games that I've continued to think about and play. And I now own that arcade board, the 2-player variant. I also have, of course, the Super NES and Genesis versions. And I spent a lot of time with every version of this game. And it's with that knowledge and feeling is that I come to Sunset Riders today. Given our age and what we played back then, I'm sure you guys remember the history of various Wild West themed video games. Like ever since the old days, there was always these games sort of running parallel to early console and arcade gaming. Stuff like Gunfight, Wild Gunman, of course, Gunsmoke. And I think the one that everybody really remembers from back then, Mad Dog McCree.
Heck yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which, of course, was an FMV game, but come on now.
Yeah.
I'm personally a bigger fan of Fast Draw Showdown, which was from the same developers as Mad Dog McCree. It's a much simpler game. It doesn't have like the moving camera, but all you do is like you have to draw faster than the other guy. And there's fantastic ports of that to WiiWare and PS3 digitally. They're really, you can use it with the Move controller on PS3. So, but I remember seeing that in the arcade as well. And my uncle had Mad Dog McCree on his computer, and that was just, oh yeah, I love the cheese of those games.
Oh man, I totally agree with you, and I do think that Mad Dog McCree, especially for the time, was just awesome, and it was a great use of Laserdisc technology, and yeah, like along with the more, I guess, like strongman themes and military stuff and all that we were seeing, Wild West games were just kind of there, right? And so it's only natural, given that it was popular around the globe, including in Japan, that we would eventually see a game like this. And Sunset Riders came to us, I believe, in 1991. And this is during a very bright period for arcade games. Yeah, between I would say 87 and 92, there's this period in the arcades where developers were just trying to do anything, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't really, there was no longer this established idea of this is an arcade game. Anything could be an arcade game. Once Street Fighter landed in 92, that all kind of changed, and the nature of what arcade games were evolved, right? That plus the 3D craze and everything. But during this period of time, this 5 years, just developers were going nuts. And Konami, of course, was just on fire. Not literally, thankfully, but figuratively. They were releasing a lot of great games, shooters, brawlers, puzzle games, golf games, everything, right?
But they really locked in on this, this 4-player craze. And that really made playing games in the arcade a group activity that people could just go with a group of their friends and they just crowd around the machines and play through these games. Starting with the first Ninja Turtles, I feel like there was a period of time where most of their arcade games were just these 4-player brawlers or shooters.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, the first one was actually a game called Crime Fighters, which I don't actually remember seeing in arcades back then, but that was their first attempt at this 4-player concept. But it was obviously Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think, that really brought this concept home and made it popular. And kind of the idea was this, you'd walk up to the machine, there's 4 joysticks, 4 sets of buttons, right? And you choose your character by physically selecting which joystick you're going to play at, right? And along the top of the screen, they would have, the 4 slots. You would pop in the coin, and then whatever joystick is you opted to use, bam, that's what you're playing, right? And I thought that was really creative and fun, and they continued with that for a while. Obviously, there was Turtles, and then they followed it up very quickly with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. The Simpsons, there was Vendetta, right? I think the actual 5th one of these to hit, from what I can tell, was Sunset Riders, which came after Vendetta and Turtles in Time. And that was the same kind of thing. But like those other games, though, there were actually variants that were 2-player only. And that's actually the board that I have. I have a 2-player variant, and that actually lets you choose the character, as opposed to the 4-player variant where it's selected by which slot you insert the coin in.
That's kind of caused an interesting sort of issue, I think, for sometimes when games like these are ported to modern consoles, because when I think of what the X-Men arcade game and the and Turtles in Time, when you play those on their modern collections like the Marvel Maximum Collection or the Cowabunga Collection, you actually have to select your character before the emulator starts. Because there's actually no in-game function for selecting between them. So it's sort of a weird situation with these 4-player machines and how they work versus, how controllers would normally be routed on modern hardware.
Yeah, and in a lot of cases, though, these 2-players and 4-player versions are just different ROM chips. I have an arcade board of Ninja Turtles, and I just got separate ROM chips that I can swap out for the 2-player version.
The hardware that this runs on, so that's another thing. This is a 16-bit game. It does use a 68,000 Motorola CPU, like the Mega Drive, of course. But this was used in a bunch of different games, actually, and some of them are quite cool. There's obviously the very famous Parodius. So Parodius Da, the first Parodius, was there. We also got the first arcade version of Twinbee, Detana Twinbee, was there. Roller Games is a super fascinating one, which is this sort of moving brawler with a lot of scaling and rotation effects, which I really like. Of course, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, Surprise Attack, various others. But based on the information, like if you look at system16.com, they have a really nice database of all the different arcade boards out there. And this one seems to suggest that depending on the game, different chips were often used for various functions. So yeah, obviously this hit right in 91. This is when Konami was like really like, I think, excelling with their visual style. Mm-hmm. Like I would say you look at something like Crime Fighters and it's not all that impressive looking, right? Compared to like Final Fight and the like. But shortly after, maybe even starting around Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they really got to grips with these like big, colorful, well animated sprites, multiple layers of parallax scrolling, very vibrant, bold colors, and just hugely detailed pixel art. And they would continue with this for quite some time. And Sunset Riders kind of hits right in the middle of that. And it was actually developed by Tsujimoto-san. And this is a guy that worked at Konami for many years. He directed Super Contra before this, as well as a puzzle game after called Crazy Cross, which of course I think this is Try's favorite puzzle game ever.
I never heard of it.
What, you're not? Oh, different cross. No. But either way, you know, Tsujimoto-san was basically asked to come in and create another 4-player game, right? Because this 4-player cooperative stuff was doing so well for Konami. And given the time frame, I assume that's how he ended up choosing, or whoever on the team ended up choosing the hardware that they used, because it seemed to be kind of like Konami's standard hardware of that era, sort of that upgraded hardware from the TMNT board. But this was also before that we got to like the Konami GX or the ZexX based board, which was, if you remember, ZexX was a really awesome shooter, but it also powered stuff like Bucky O'Hare, Asterix, and the like. And that was kind of like the next step up from this. It still used a 68,000, but it had other capabilities sort of grafted on, including like digital audio and stuff, it seems. Sunset Riders doesn't have all that. But that's kind of the background here. You know, Western games were still kind of popular, that this was kind of coming at the tail end. You know, Konami was having a lot of success in the arcade. This fit right into their 4-player strategy. It was a beautiful game. And there's a lot to it, right? So before we actually talk about the mechanics and everything else around it, did either of you guys actually play this back in the day as I did?
I may have played it one time at an Aladdin's Castle in Warren, Pennsylvania. You know, I think that, you know, whenever I'd just get $5 and go to the arcade, a lot of times I would end up playing just random things. I mean, that's how I got exposed to things like Night Striker. And this is definitely one that I probably played a little bit. I mean, it's a tough game, so I probably did not. I was kind of like, all right, that's enough. Like after one time. And I think it's a game that I didn't really come to appreciate until years and years later on consoles. But yeah, I mean, maybe a couple times I played it, but not nearly. I didn't have a life-changing experience like John did. But,
yeah, I think for me, you know, the first I became aware of it was just probably when I was starting to research, like, oh, what are some cool Super Nintendo games that I missed? What games do I want to get for Sega Genesis? And, you know, it's like, oh, Konami games. I'm always looking for Konami games. The problem with Sunset Riders, though, is that it's always, well, maybe not always, but since I've been looking at least, it's always been a higher priced game. You know, I looked on price charting the other day. The Super Nintendo version's still $100 card only. And I don't know. Every time I've tried it, it's never like it's good, but it's never quite met the $100 threshold for me. You know, I've never been like, yeah, I want to spend $100 on this game. So yeah, that's kind of been a bit of a barrier for me because, you know, I do like my home console versions, and I do, you know, I do prefer to own a game before I like really commit to putting, you know, the time into learning to play through it and overcoming its challenges. But I will say the most memorable experience I've had with Sunset Riders actually was the first time Coury and I were invited to a convention. We were flown out to Gatineau, Quebec, and went to a convention called G Anime. And in their game room, they had a 4-player Sunset Riders machine. We're like, oh, hey, Sunset Riders. That seems like a thing to play. And so, it was on free play, of course. So, the challenge was largely mitigated, in terms of, how difficult the game was. That didn't really make an impression. But the thing that I'll never forget is that partway through the game, this probably 5-year-old French-speaking Canadian kid comes up to the machine and just starts playing with us. And he is just beaming.
So into it.
With excitement. And it just keeps turning to us and just making these random exclamations in French that we had no clue what he was saying. And we're just kind of nodding and smiling at him. But he just came up and just stuck with it and held his attention, which is maybe difficult to do for, a 5-year-old kid and, an early 90s arcade game. So that always stuck with me. I mean, he was having a blast. I have no idea where his parents were. But he was having a blast. No idea what he was trying to tell us, but that always stuck with me. So even though
it's like Lukey Luke.
Maybe. But even though I've never really connected with Sunset Riders myself that deeply, I look back on that experience and see there's kind of something there, right? Something that transcends time and generations. And I don't know. I always thought that was a fun story.
Fundamentally, I think it's one of those games that just feels good to play. The control, the feeling of movement, the explosions, especially those dynamite sticks.
Oh, the dynamite explosions, yes.
It's awesome. It just feels snappy. It feels big and loud, and I love it. But it is a difficult game because fundamentally this is one of those games that has one hit deaths, like Contra, I suppose. Right? You take a shot from an enemy, and even though their projectiles do move pretty slow,
I mean, your character isn't exactly super agile.
No,
and is big, so that it's hard to dodge some of the stuff, and there's no invincibility frames except for when you're jumping up to a higher platform.
That's right.
Yeah, they've got more of that lanky character design, more similar to Rolling Thunder and Shinobi, which are very much games of the same genre, right?
That was the next thing I was going to talk about. Actually, is fundamentally this is a combination of Rolling Thunder meets Contra, right? Where there's a lot more shooting than Rolling Thunder, and certainly more than Shinobi. But it still has that design, specifically with the slower character movement and that 2-tiered stage design, right? Where the idea is you're on the ground normally, but if you hold up and jump and there's a level above, your character will literally vault upward, grab the ledge and jump up top, right? So it's these 2-story Old West buildings and various other structures like that. I think that feels awesome. And as you mentioned, Coury, that is the only time where you actually get invincibility frames during that transition. There's a slide move, by the way, that's really important. But again, you don't actually get iframes during this.
Yeah, if you had that, I think that would make the game a lot more playable. Just in general,
I think the slide doesn't go that far either. When I was just kind of refreshing myself on these games the other day, I was just thinking man, I wish you could dodge in Wild Guns. Wild Guns is my cowboy.
Because a lot of the boss characters dodged in Wild Guns.
Yeah, yeah. Come on, why can't
they can do a dive and roll? But
guys, the secret here is that you can actually get good at this, and this is one of those games that I just kind of mastered over time,
right?
And I think that's probably why I enjoy it so much, because I just fundamentally have this game filed away in my memory. So when I sit down to play it, I can usually get through it pretty well. The Super NES version can be a challenge if you're not used to it, because that is a game where when you lose your lives and continue, it restarts the stage.
And a big key to that is, of getting good is that, the power-ups will give you 2 guns and you can shoot diagonally and
or like more shots with the shotgun.
But just having that diagonal shot, which is funny because I kind of think of Gunsmoke with the way that has a straightforward shot and a angled shot too. So it's just kind of like an interesting thing, like a parallel, even though they're different developers and different perspectives. The fact that they both thought of the idea of having a gun in each hand and firing in different directions.
Yeah, that diagonal shot. I feel like I've always had a hard time in this game. Granted, remember, I've tried the console versions more recently than the arcade version, but I've always never felt super confident about understanding the angle of my shot. Like, where is it going to go? Where is it going to hit? I don't know. That kind of stuff always just felt much more intuitive to me in Contra. At least the console Contra games. I don't like the arcade Contra games. But to me, like, run and gun platformers are some of my favorites. But this one it's a little harder to get into than Contra, in my opinion.
It's close to the arcade version of Contra because it has, your characters are so much bigger in the arcade version, and you're not nearly as agile. Like, you don't like shrink into this little ball when you do a jump.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
That's right.
So that's kind of the big thing because, you'll be jumping over bullets and your legs will hit it or something instead of just like being like this tiny little ball. And also, like, I know, like, the enemy bullets they will fire in a direction, but they will slowly drift.
They're very slow. Yeah.
Yeah, like, well, they would drift like in either direction. So they might be firing in a specific direction, but it will slowly drift like either up or down. That makes it really hard just to find a place that you can get some good shots in. You got to constantly be moving or changing tiers in this, especially when fighting bosses that, you don't like sometimes it's a bit overwhelming.
What I find satisfying about it is essentially bullet management, dealing with enemies and understanding their bullet patterns, and it's all about eliminating them as quickly as possible when they come on screen and knowing the order in which to do it. It's not something you necessarily memorize, you just kind of like get a feel for it, right? But like how hard the game is depends on how many enemies you let flood the screen and how many bullets you let fly. So it's all about moving through it strategically and being ready to eliminate them exactly as they appear in the right way. And if you do that well and you learn to manage the enemy counts and the bullets correctly, you'll actually have a much easier time actually getting through it. And that's kind of the key to mastery on this game, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I love to like try again on a classic game. I mean, that's one of the things that I love about retro gaming is
that's why we call you Try.
Yeah, I like to try again and learn the game slowly over time. It's okay to fail and start over. I really do think my big mental block with Sunset Riders has been it's too expensive anyway to get the home console version, right? So I feel like that's been like the big barrier toward me like wanting to learn the game. So,
The game also has some interesting variety in its stages, right? Because it's got multiple stages where you ride on horseback, right? Like right away in the second stage, you're chasing like a train or you're dealing with these like covered wagons and there's other enemies on horses and you're riding along and have to deal with them, which is fun. Yeah. There's also these bonus games, which I think remind me of what would be in Snatcher.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I was like, oh, it was, I was thinking I'm going to bring that up as a point during this conversation. And I see that you already wrote it on there. Like Snatcher, LOL. It totally is. Where you have like the 8 quadrants of the screen and you just, you press the D-pad in that direction and shoot them.
Konami stealing Konami's idea? Come on.
It's very funny. I liked it a lot. I guess we didn't actually mention the way the power-ups work. Largely is like, while you can get stuff from enemies, the big thing is that there's levels that have these doors in them, right? Like right away in the very first level. And when you enter the door, sometimes you get a beer bottle and you'll like chug it and slam it. But then usually there's a pretty girl waiting in there to give you a kiss and she gives you a power-up. And your guy looks all bashful with that big goofy smile. It's very like 80s anime.
What's really funny about the girls though, I mean, like it's like more in the port section, but like they're not present in the SNES version, but they are in every door in the Genesis version, even in the bank.
They are.
I thought it was
everywhere,
so,
dude.
she's like, I thought it was very funny. You in the Genesis version, you enter into the bank and then you come out, and she's like with you, even in the bank.
That's so funny. I love it. What we didn't actually mention yet, though, is the characters, which are named Steve, Billy, Bob, and Cormano. I have it on authority that Steve and Bob were the inspirations for the name of Retro RGB Bob and Steve from Retrotech. Their parents love Sunset Riders so much.
I am very partial to Bob because he has the two shotguns, dual wielding shotguns at some points, and he is the third player. There's something about the third player in all of these arcade games that I feel, I was always partial towards playing as Donatello in Ninja Turtles, who was the third player. So I think about, who are the third players? The Simpsons, Bart was player 3.
But yeah, for me, I was all about Cormano in his shotgun.
Yeah. I do like him. He's probably the coolest.
And Hot Pink.
And that's another funny thing. It's the Old West, right? But it's Konami. It's got to have bold colors, and it does. And so Billy is like a very bold blue color. Steve is bright, hot yellow. Bob is just like a bright green. And Cormano, of course, is a blazing hot pink with the sombrero and everything, and like the big cloak and all that. It's extremely of the era, but in the best possible way. And I love it. I just love it. It's so good looking.
I forget which one of the home console versions, but they have last names listed in one of the home console versions. And I forget which character, but one of them has the last name of Wild, which I know is one of Coury's favorite words.
There was another fun thing I love is that I believe with Cormano, after the boss on the train, if I recall, who has a red sombrero or a red hat, he throws the hat and then Cormano takes that hat and he wears that for the rest of the game.
That's fun.
Really?
Oh, that's fun.
That's great.
So
because everybody else just lets it fly past him.
Right? But now Cormano actually grabs it and like, gunk, get the red hat.
That's great.
That's pretty fun. Good.
One thing I think is kind of interesting about its progression is that, you get 3 stages. It almost feels like E-SWAT or something like that, where you have 3 stages kind of leading up to the main plot.
E-SWAT.
And then, each stage starts with you taking, it starts with a poster of a wanted poster, wanted dead or alive, and you get money for that. But after you finish 3 of those, the person you rescued said, "Oh, they were all working for this other person. This Sir Richard Rose. Sir Richard Rose always has his 3 henchmen with them. So then you get this whole other main plot where you're going after the Richard Rose and his band of whatever, like outlaws."
Well, all I have to say about the villains is bury me with my money.
So that's actually a fun thing because the game does have a lot of voice samples like that.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is the voice clip played when you defeat the first boss, when he crumples to the ground after falling from the second story.
That is one of my favorite video game voice clips.
Yeah.
Bury me with my money.
That's good. And, it's right up there with Oh My Car from Final Fight, I think.
Oh, my car.
Marry me with my money.
Who did the music for this?
Yeah, so the music I mentioned earlier is one of the special parts of this game. The themes are extremely memorable. And the main composer on this was actually a man by the name of Motoaki Furukawa, who did a lot of work at Konami back in the day, including obviously this, but he also worked on various Castlevania games, Snatcher, Lethal Enforcers, Rondo of Blood. There was definitely some like connections here, but he was like the main guy in Sunset Riders, it seems. And the music is excellent. He also worked along with a fellow by the name of Kenichiro Fukui, who did the sound effects, I believe, for this game. And Fukui-san would go on to actually... He did a bunch of stuff for Konami, including, I think, Lethal Enforcers, and he worked with Furukawa-san a bunch here. But he went on to work on Einhander for Square.
Ooh.
Music for that game, among other things.
The music in that game is actually really interesting.
The key here, though, is that they had some very talented musical and sound guys working in this game, and you can sure tell because this was an era where Konami was just like dropping so much great music, like really one of their best.
I
eras,
mean, do they ever not? Pretty much.
They certainly didn't miss back then, and this is no exception. The soundtrack is phenomenal, and of course, as we mentioned, the voice samples are there as well. The arcade hardware was capable of doing that, and we heard that in various other games from this era. So that's that. The arcade game was a smash hit. It was a very popular game as far as I can tell. I certainly, loved it, but a lot of folks I knew around me also enjoyed it. And it just seems to have kind of stuck around for a long time in sort of like the public consciousness. If you were playing arcade games back there, not everybody loved it, like Try here, but
I mean, it's
I think
good.
It's a great game.
I respect it. I just usually don't have the best time playing it. At least, when I have to worry about getting all the way through it on the console versions, which, I guess is the next subject, right?
Hasta la bye-bye.
As was often the case back in the day, Konami and other manufacturers were very quick to want to bring their Smash arcade hits to home consoles. Obviously, the NES era was a different beast, and Konami brought games like Contra home. But because of the difference in hardware, they had to make major changes to them. But by this generation, the 16-bit generation, we were starting to get to the point where developers could actually create reasonable facsimiles of the arcade games. Basically, versions of the game that maybe not quite as robust, looked surprisingly close. We already saw this with stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, which, of course, uses the same board as Sunset Riders in the arcade, which was ported very faithfully to the Super NES with just missing animation frames and some loss in detail, but by and large, it looked really, really close to the arcade game.
And I think
It's even
plays better on
expanded
Super
upon.
Nintendo, in my opinion.
I agree. It's really, really good. With Sunset Riders, though, a different path was taken in that the first version of the game to release was for the Sega Genesis, or in the Europe, the Mega Drive. And this, I believe, was 1992. And this was just when Konami was beginning to support the system. They would go on to do some really amazing stuff for Sega's machine, but Sega found enough success that Konami was contributing games to the machine. But with Sunset Riders, it seems they had a somewhat inexperienced team create a game, and they had to cram the whole thing into a 4 megabit cart.
Man,
which I think is just absurd.
Suffers. And it suffers.
This is a weird one because there's a good side to this version, and then there's the bad side to it. So the bad side being, it looks and sounds noticeably worse than the arcade game. It's missing a lot of the content of the arcade game. It's basically a stripped down port. There's only 2 characters in it. The voice clips are gone. The music is lower quality. The gun shooting bonus stages are gone, and the horse levels are gone. Though the horse does make an appearance as its own unique bonus stage.
Yeah.
But I actually think this game, I've come around on it in time, because what we have instead is almost like a second Sunset Riders game. Not a sequel, but it's like an alternative Sunset Riders game with different level design, different layouts. It looks a lot like Sunset Riders, but it plays like its own version of the game. And to that end, I actually quite enjoy going through it because it is like a unique iteration of the game, even if it doesn't actually manage to capture the arcade experience, right?
The biggest thing that I think is the best part of this version is something that none of the other versions have, and that is the ability to lock yourself in place and shoot. That's very much needed, especially with some of the bosses in the arcade game and the Super Nintendo version. Just being able to to aim diagonally without having to walk at the same time is huge.
And if you play this on one of the, I guess, modern 8-bit DOE controllers on a Mega Drive that has the shoulder buttons, right? If you map it correctly, I have the move and shoot set to A, jump set to B, but then the lock and shoot set to C. And since C is also doubled up on the right shoulder button, it becomes this natural motion of just holding the shoulder button to lock in place and shoot, and you let go to move again.
the thing that just kind of makes me instantly want to quit playing this version, and maybe I'm overlooking something with how the secondary shot mode works, but it seems that you can't duck and shoot straight ahead unless you have to, because if you hold down, you will just shoot into the ground. You have to hold down, then you start shooting into the ground, you have to let go of down, continue holding shoot, and then you start shooting ahead. And it feels like a very cumbersome way to aim forward. I mean, maybe I'm overlooking something about this, but it feels bad to me.
I would say I actually do think this version plays really well. It feels good on the controller. And, I like revisiting it, but I especially like it now because it was actually enhanced via... So one of the Mega Drive Genesis modders known as Linkway released an enhanced colors patch for this, which essentially brings this closer to the arcade game in terms of the color usage. And it's really transformative for the visuals, I think. It makes it look so much better and much more true to what the original looked like. Whereas the initial version that actually released has this very it's like an overly dark, grungy look in comparison, right?
Yeah, it's obvious that they were not comfortable with the Genesis hardware at that point, or the use of colors, especially considering how bright the other games are. It feels very dull.
It does indeed. But there's another thing that's really interesting in that we only have a look at it, but I've had a chance to test this myself, and I can speak to it, is that the Mega Drive sprite artist modder Pyron was involved in working on a version of Sunset Riders for the Mega Drive that was seeking to properly bring the arcade experience home using their own engine. And it's just this demo level here, but they made some insane progress on actually bringing this to life, in that it actually looks almost like the arcade game. The visual quality, the sound quality is hugely improved. Everything about this looks like almost arcade perfect, which suggests that, in the right hands with the right size of cartridge, this technically could have been done. After all, it uses the same CPU, right?
Yeah.
And there's ways to adapt the graphics and colors to fit within the system very well, and they did that.
And that sort of goes back to what you've said before, where the real limiting factor at the time was probably ROM size or cartridge space that you had. Because, there's a lot of cut stuff in this game. So, it seems to fit it into that 4 meg limit.
And this just kind of shows what could have been done. And it is a shame that it's so bare bones and stripped back. But in retrospect, it is kind of cool having this alternate version. Even right away, right? The first stage, you play through the stage, you rescue a girl at the end, right? And then stage 2 is the same sort of tile set, but then you face the boss. So they essentially do 2 acts per stage, which was kind of a common trope for video games back then anyway. But it doesn't have everything, obviously, as we noted. For instance, the horseback stuff is just not there.
Yeah. A key thing is that there's only 2 playable characters. It's only Billy and Cormano in this game.
But since I'm a Cormano player, no big deal.
They rearrange the order of the bosses. Sometimes there's bosses just on totally different stages. My favorite boss is Paco Loco, and he's the 3rd boss in this one.
Oh yeah, Paco Loco. Actually, one thing I will say is I really like the last stage where you're going after Richard Rose,
which is new.
I feel like they really expanded that, right? You got a taste of that architecture at the end of the arcade game, but they didn't really dig into this. But here you actually get a full set of stages with that sort of more ornate castle-like architecture with the statues and, given the name, roses everywhere. And it's neat. It feels different, and it's unique to this version.
I was surprised when I made it to that point, saying wow, they totally redid this last stage. You got to shoot down the big brick wall and stuff like that.
So one of the interesting things, though, is that this did not get released in Japan on home consoles.
So fascinating.
Which brings us to the Super NES version as well, which again, no Japanese release of
Really?
either of these. So
I wonder
that's
why.
right. I also kind of wondered. Konami did this a lot, like Konami's Animaniacs game, the Tiny Toons game, Tiny Toons sports games like that. No Japanese release.
Yeah, but this was their own property, you know. No, you know,
Yeah,
those
this was
were
their own
licensed
property,
games,
so I don't
yeah.
know. I really don't get it.
I mean, it's
but
definitely
that's what happened,
probably
so.
part of the reason that the game is so expensive.
So the Super NES version is a pretty impressive release, I think. This is obviously Konami was on its second generation of software by this point, right? And they had already brought over the excellent conversion, as mentioned, of Turtles in Time. Same arcade board here. This is really good. They basically recreated the entirety of the arcade game on the Super NES, right? With the only changes being sort of like light censorship stuff. Like the girl stuff and the Native American stuff and all that.
Well, I mean, specifically, you know, the Native American stage. You know, you fight one of the bosses in the arcade version and the Genesis version is a Native American named Chief Scalpum. Then in the Super Nintendo version, they just replace him with, you know, your typical cannon fodder cowboys, bad cowboys. And what I think is also very funny is that Nintendo must have taken issue with the name Scalpum. So his name is Chief Wigwam. Which
that seems worse, I'll be honest.
Yeah. I mean, that feels
that's really bad.
I don't know if they're in the Genesis version. There's these cowgirls that throw dynamite at you, and they are just not in this at all either.
But the Super NES version does actually translate all the stages and mechanics. So like the horse riding stages are here, the shooting stages are here. Basically everything from the arcade game is intact. They even got the voice samples in there, which is great. The main difference is that it's been reduced to the, 256 by 224 resolution. So the artwork is a little less sharp because they had to literally kind of bit crush it all, but it looks good. It's missing some animation frames. They tried to recreate the dynamite explosion effect in the same way, where it's like big and screen filling, but it's obviously like a quarter of the resolution of the arcade.
I do enjoy that.
I like how they look.
Yeah, I like that too.
It's cool though.
It's overall like a kind of a flatter looking game, I think, compared to the arcade game. Like even for the Super Nintendo, I feel like it's kind of just a flatter shaded looking game. So it doesn't have like that kind of the quite as much of the high quality look that I expect of Konami games on the Super Nintendo, but it's still a good looking game and plays a heck of a lot better than the Genesis game in my opinion. It's enjoyable. I could see myself getting into this version, but just hasn't happened yet.
In terms of playability, though, much like the Genesis version has the lock, like stand still, lock the shoot, if you want to use that, this one does something else that I think is great, is putting the slide on its own button.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it a lot more usable, I think.
Yeah, I agree. If you actually play the arcade game with an arcade stick, you slam the stick into the corner, it feels okay. I think not a big deal, but you're right. It's a little less easy on like a D-pad. So having the dedicated slide button really improves it. As you'd expect, this version is, while it does have all 4 characters, it is 2-player only. I don't think they could have pulled off a 4-player game like this on the Super NES. Although I would have loved, did anybody attempt that? Can you guys remember?
They tried a 4-player game like this?
Like a 4-player like
action
shoot
game.
'em up? I feel like that would be...
Because we obviously...
really chaotic.
Yeah. I feel like there's probably just too many sprites to throw around.
Right, and the horizontal resolution is
I mean,
lower, so it's too much stuff to fit into the screen.
4 players in the arcade version, there's a lot going on.
I agree.
It might not actually be that
too
fun.
ambitious.
No, you're right. It's super weird like that. I agree. It's worth noting that, much like the Genesis, there is actually a modded version out there. that I've played, and this one is an MSU1 patch version, which adds the arcade soundtrack into the mix. So I think the Super NES renditions of the music are excellent, but I do still prefer the arcade sound, so it's kind of a fun way to sort of add that back into the game.
And it does that thing that I love when games like this do, which is repeating that first stage music on the last stage.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it kind of gets you all hyped up again, right?
We in big trouble.
That was kind of like Sunset Riders right there. It was just that one game at these two ports. It is, of course, available on modern platforms now, thanks to Arcade Archives, which is awesome. So if you want to play it there, you can do it.
It is also on the Mister.
Indeed.
It does have some graphical issues currently.
That's why I still have my arcade board. but yes, it's pretty good on the Mister as is already, even without being perfected.
Right.
But that was, I mean, there really wasn't much else to it. This game kind of came and went. It got those ports, and, you know, I continue to think about it. I hope that there's others that did as well, but it wasn't like a big property for them. This was definitely a one and done kind of game. But it wasn't the last of this style of game, especially from this team. And so earlier when we started the episode, I mentioned that it kind of had a sequel. And people may be familiar with the game, but I really maintain that this is effectively Sunset Riders 2. And let me explain. So I'm talking about Mystic Warriors, Wrath of the Ninjas. Basically done by a lot of the same team, directed by Tsujimoto-san again. And the idea is this, is like you look at Sunset Riders, right? It's like Western themed, right? You look at Mystic Warriors, it's ninja themed. You see where that's going? Like, to me, this feels like they were trying to make a series of games that pulled from these sort of like movie tropes or, you know, comic book tropes and turned them into an action game with a very similar style of play. So with that, by that same token, there could have been like a third entry that followed a different trope of some sort. And in fact, in the very first stage of Mystic Warriors, you actually see Sunset Riders directly referenced on a billboard.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's on a drive-in screen.
Oh, yeah, it's a drive-in screen, not a billboard, right? It's actually animated, like it shows one of the characters like tip their hat and all that.
Right. And it says Sunset Riders like right on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was blown away when you showed it to me when I was visiting you 2 years ago, John. And I was just, I was shocked. I had no idea this existed because it really is just Sunset Riders again.
I think it's a lot better. It gets rid of the one-hit kills. You now can take 3 hits per life, which is great. And, you know, your character's a lot more agile and it's just fast moving, you know, and there's 5 characters.
Well, when you start the game, you choose your character and one of the fifth or a random 5th character gets kidnapped and then the game begins.
I was very surprised at that because you know, I tried it several times. I thought it was just one, and then like if you chose that character, then it would be somebody else. But it seems to be random every time. Except for I never saw the girl ninja Yuri get kidnapped.
Oh, I've seen that. But they can all get kidnapped.
But the thing is there's different voices. Like all the characters have different voices depending on who gets kidnapped. And my favorite one, the first time I played, it was Brad that got kidnapped, and they're always like, Brad, Brad, and they reuse that same voice several times. And when you beat the game, you know it flashbacks to certain segments in the game, and several times it's just like Brad, Brad.
They got a lot of mileage out of that.
Yes.
And it's available like Arcade Archives as well, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
it's like
it is.
$8.
It is.
Yeah.
But dude, this game is hard hitting, man. Like right out of the gate. Like first of all, it has a similar kind of like trajectory. Like I guess they're throwing ninja stars, but like the blue character, for instance, fires much like I guess Billy from Sunset Riders with that sort of like arc, the 2-angled shot. They also have melee weapons. right? They are ninjas after all. So it works kind of like how Metal Slug would work, where you get close in, switches to melee, and you're at
And
a
you do more
distance,
damage that way.
do more damage that way. So it encourages a more aggressive style of play. And there's just like more stuff happening, right? Like trucks crashing into things, huge explosions.
On the first level, or is it maybe it's the second level, where this big construction vehicle comes out and has a big buzzsaw
Yeah, that's
on the
first
front.
level.
Okay, and it's like going up and down. When you defeat it, the buzzsaw comes off of the machine and then starts spinning and then goes backwards and then cuts the vehicle in half.
Yep.
And then later on in the stage, you see it like stuck. You see that buzzsaw like stuck into a wall.
Yes, it's super good. But like the second stage, then I swear it's literally ninjas on skis.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Like you're going down that mountain, you just hop on the skis, and it's so funny.
All right,
I love it.
you said like, ninjas with skis. I'm literally going to the Switch eShop and adding this to my wish list right now.
From there, though, it's like it continues through that. You know, there's like helicopters. There's the cave. Then there's that water section where it's actually like after the initial part, it's like a vertical section where you're fighting like a boss like enemy, while like you're sinking into the water while dealing with him. And then eventually you beat him and you're spat out into a river, and you're riding quickly down a river on like a wooden raft, and dudes are like coming along from there. And then there's like guys on the side on motorcycles trying to take you out. It's freaking awesome.
It just goes crazy with putting ninjas in situations you don't normally see ninjas in.
Exactly. There's minecart levels. There's huge, just like giant bosses.
Yeah.
There's the part where you're running, you're in the sky running on a plane. Which feels,
you're jumping from plane to plane.
Yes.
And then when you beat that stage and it goes into the final stage, you jump off, and then in the background, you see the plane you're on like crash, like way in the distance. Like you see it slowly.
Yeah. It's like,
crashing.
it uses like scaling, like sprite scaling. So you see it getting smaller and smaller. It's like sunset now. So it's going to get that pink hue of the sky.
Yep.
And then they show like, you kind of swoop in using this like cloth to like fly down and land on the ground, and then boom, stage begins.
Man, I want to see more of this game now. Like you all kind of have me sold.
Yeah, I mean, Mystic Warriors is a lot better than Sunset Riders.
I agree. I love Sunset Riders, but Mystic Warriors is like one heck of a sequel.
But no one knows about it.
Like I never saw this arcade game. I only got to play it years later. It never got ported. Like I assume that, and this was running on more powerful hardware, like the same thing that powered like ZX and all that. So this was like later, just before the GX board, but still more powerful. I think it would have been tough to bring this to one of the home consoles at the time. And then when you get to PlayStation, like Konami was interested in totally different things. This probably also, because it was a 1993 game, this is like post Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat. So the whole arcade scene is different. And I feel like all those things conspire together to create something where like it wasn't suitable for home. It didn't fit what was big in the arcade at the time. And then people just kind of ignored it, and it flew under the radar, and you just don't hear about it. But it is genuinely one of the coolest action games that Konami made from that era.
It would have been a great fit for Saturn, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they could have done a perfect port on Saturn if they had wanted to, but I think by then I'm just surprised that they let this go, because it's so much fun and just so extreme. Like I feel like it doesn't make sense to let this kind of die like they did. Mm-hmm. But that's what happened, and it only ever came back with arcade archives. Outside of that, like I think most people that would have played it probably had to do so through emulation.
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, I mean, yeah, I would still love to get an arcade board of this, and I would also like to see it come to Mister.
You mentioned this, but there is a similar game that has a Western theme sandwiched in between the release of Sunset Riders and this.
Aha! So yes, this is.
But I don't think there's any. I'm not sure if there's any overlap in the development team, because this game is much worse than both.
So we're obviously talking about Wild West Cowboys of Moo Mesa, or C.O.W. Boys of Moo Mesa. So this is kind of interesting, because this is one of those things where, and you can look at what Konami was doing. It's clear that the Ninja Turtles like rocked their world, right? They made Ninja Turtles. They made that deal. They made a ton of money. And they were clearly like going after other series. It's where you also get like Bucky O'Hare and other stuff like that.
Simpsons.
The Bucky O'Hare game's awesome, by the way. Of course.
Oh, yeah.
And Simpsons, yeah, also great. This was another one. This was actually also a TV show, and one that I don't actually remember at all. This was not much of a hit. It was not well known.
I love dumb stuff, so like, you know, I'm kind of intrigued.
But basically, you're like these large anthropomorphic cows that like you're cowboys, but you're actually cows.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's it's a very bovine centric game. The point is though, is that it does play a lot like Sunset Riders at a glance. It has that multi-tiered thing. It's large sprites, run and gun. Like conceptually, you could look at this and think, oh, this is actually like a sequel to Sunset Riders. But in reality, doesn't seem to have any real staff connection. And the actual core gameplay, I think, is significantly less refined. Like it's less creative. It's a little bit more just boring, I would say. It's not horrible by any means, but it's definitely like a B tier game for Konami. And it doesn't have any of that imagination that Mystic Warriors would go on to have.
I remember trying it very, very briefly on emulator some years ago and remember nothing about it other than the stupid concept, which I like.
I would say the visuals are really nice. Like I think this also uses the ZexX board. So it's got big, colorful, super well animated sprites. You know, the backgrounds look pretty good, I would say. Michiru Yamane did the soundtrack. So the music's pretty good. This is before her Castlevania days, actually, I would say. That would start with Bloodlines on the Genesis. Mm-hmm. But there's also, I guess, that special move that you have to use right away, where if you hold jump and shoot together, you do this sort of like charge attack thing. Right. And that's kind of like this game's unique feature.
Because you're a cow.
But
you're a cow.
Because you're a cow. It's a
or
stampede. It really kind of came and went. It gets you'll hear people bring this up once in a while as kind of like an aside. I don't hate it. I think it's totally fine. It's fun, but it's definitely a step down, and you can tell that the guys behind Sunset Riders and Mystic Warriors, like this didn't get the same level of love as those games.
I wonder if the show was already like over with by the time this released. I don't even think it went for very long. I've never even heard of this show before, playing this. I've never seen this machine in my life.
Yeah. I think the show probably came on like as I was already like getting tired of Ninja Turtles at the time, so.
I do think it's still worth checking out because fundamentally it's still a Konami era, like arcade shooting action game from the 90s. So it's good in that sense. I just think it's not as good as some of their other games, right?
And especially in the face of, Mystic Warriors, that it makes this even more forgettable.
Mystic Warriors just kicks the doors off of a lot of 2D action games from then. Man, it's so freaking good. Like seriously, if you guys listening haven't played Mystic Warriors, go do so.
The Arcade Archives version is $8. It's worth it. You mentioned, before we were recording that it was Nakano that did the music for Mystic Warriors. Is it?
Oh yeah. One of the guys was Junya Nakano.
Yeah.
Who did work on Final Fantasy X. He was one of the 3 composers on that.
I was just saying that because, one of my first impressions, or one of my final impressions, I guess, after I finished it, I was like, wow, the music in this game is just really, really good.
Oh, right. Of course. On Mystic Warriors, it was also the very famous Takenouchi, who goes by Technouchi, which is a shame that Audie's not here for this because he actually knows Technouchi. And that's also a very talented composer that did a lot of work with Konami. Just to list a few, by the way, Space Manbo, awesome. Nemesis, SD Snatcher, worked with Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake, the X-Men arcade game, Gaiopolis, which is awesome sounding, and various others as well. Wow, actually, one of their most recent games was a game called Bounty Sisters, which I haven't played, that Junya Nakano also worked on. So they were back together for another modern game. How about it?
The voices are also very good in Mystic Warriors. I feel like I just want to keep on talking about it because every time you pick up food, it says
Right.
it. It's like udon.
Udon. That's right.
We stopped talking about Mystic Warriors, and you just keep being pulled back to it.
Keep going.
Keep coming back to it. I know. And it's, the thing is, though, it's like after this, there wasn't a lot of other run and gun games from Konami outside of Run and Gun and Run and Gun 2, which are basketball games. But as far as games where you run around and shoot things, there's not that much more from Konami. I mean, Contra would kind of continue, but like we would get Contra the hardcore on the Genesis, but then that kind of died off until they brought it back with Shattered Soldier, right?
Yeah.
Like the 32-bit era of Contra was not good. Not very good. It was Western developed and much worse. So Konami just kind of stepped away from these types of games by and large for a while. I mean, they kept doing like shoot 'em ups, but this sort of like character action, running around, shooting guys kind of game.
Mm.
Yeah, it just kind of fizzled out. And part of that's, I guess, just, market conditions of the time, right? Like a game like Mystic Warriors just doesn't really fit anywhere at the time. Too big for home consoles of the era, too old for the consoles that would launch soon, I suppose. It's too sprite-based, yet not fighting enough for arcade.
Yeah.
Like all these factors conspire to create it. And it's just like, I always wondered if there was a way that they could have somehow tied this more directly to Sunset Riders as like part of like a theme series, if it could have gotten a little more attention. I don't know. After talking about it, have any opinions changed on Sunset Riders or I guess Mystic Warriors? Like, what are your thoughts now, Trey?
I mean, I literally added both Arcade Archives versions to my Switch wish list. I'll wait until they go on sale, but I do want to give it another chance. I would say I am much more into arcade games now than I was perhaps the last time I tried the arcade version of Sunset Riders, because Mister really helped open that up to me, and also the way that we do arcade games on the backloggery streams, where we actually force ourselves to earn extra credits by making progress run after run. Kind of makes arcade games much more engaging to me than they used to be. I used to always be seeking out console versions. So I think maybe if I were to have these games and have that good stream experience with them, I think my mind could change. I think I've had too much of a mental block against it, just because that Super Nintendo's version is expensive, and that for so long was the version I would have preferred to have.
I thought it was good before, but I mean, Mystic Warriors kind of changed the game. I think Mystic Warriors is excellent. But I don't know if we want to quickly address the spiritual successor that came out a couple of years back. Because obviously this game and this playstyle had a big effect on a lot of people, including the developers at Monster Bath Games, who I'm pretty sure did
Battle Princess Madeline.
Battle Princess Madeline previously. They did a game called Death Wish Enforcers, and a game that I don't feel is very good, unfortunately. There's a lot of potential there, but there's a lot of, it's just, I don't know. It's just, it's kind of based on a lot of these old like cult movies,
like Grindhouse sort of,
like
or like
like 70s movies,
Dirty Harry or whatever,
based on Dirty Harry, Charles
Very
Bronson
much.
from Death Wish.
I think it's a very good idea, like going for like I feel like a 70s version of Sunset Riders is kind of like it's a brilliant idea that's also like kind of obvious at the same time. It's a good genre to kind of sidestep that gameplay into.
And
Yes.
it ties into what I was saying earlier about the thematic concept,
Right.
This could have been the third one.
Cowboys, ninjas, this kind of stuff.
Dirty
Like,
cops.
it makes sense, right? Dirty cop. I do love the little detail, by the way. In Sunset Riders, when you go in the door and you take the beer, chug the beer, slam it on the ground. In this one, they do it so like he goes in there, chugs the bottle, and then discreetly hides it in his jacket.
Yeah, I've not played it, but
great.
I've seen trailers and stuff for it. I mean, it looks okay.
I like it. I think it's good. It's not. I don't think it's as refined as what Konami's games offered.
What I have heard is that, the console versions are a little messy, but then it was released on PC. They added another character and refined things a lot more, and it's just a much better game for it. So, I mean, I should try the PC version out, because I was surprised that those additions were not even patched into the console version. It's just nothing ever happened with that, but it is.
Yeah, that initial release wasn't great. That's right.
The PC version is called Death Wish Enforcers Special Edition.
Yes. So that's definitely a better one to check out. But, I do like it. I think it's okay, but it's not as good. And it's the same problem I have with Battle Princess Madeline, actually, where, again, it looks cool and you like what they're going for thematically, but it's just not as good as what it's trying to ape.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say at the very least, they really nailed the aesthetic. I think the visuals are quite good. Their pixel artists did a nice job capturing that kind of era. It's also well animated, nicely detailed. And also, I do think this sort of game benefits from being widescreen.
Oh, for sure.
It just gives a little bit more.
Yes.
Yeah, it gives a little bit more visibility on the left and right. That just helps it from feeling too cramped.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same reason. Like, can you imagine if the Konami X-Men game had been single screen with 6 players supported?
Not playable. It's just too much going on.
Exactly. So,
Especially with as many enemies that game throws at you too.
Exactly. So it's cool. This works. So yeah, good shout, Coury. I actually almost forgot about this one. But it is definitely worth checking out. And the only one I've played actually is that PC version, by the way. So
okay.
I'm curious now. I actually forgot about that. The console version was released first and was less well regarded. So,
Yeah, the PS5 version. When I first got the physical PS5 version, it didn't have. It needed to be patched. Without the patch, you had to press up to duck.
Oh no!
I wonder if they were thinking flashback or Blackthorn kind of thing.
No, I think it was just
bug.
The up and down were flipped.
Oh my
for some
God.
reason.
But it sounds like PC is the place to play for sure.
Either way, it's cool that it exists, even if it's not a perfect attempt. It's certainly no Mystic Warriors, I'll tell you that much.
Right.
But what is besides
that should be the real
Warriors?
takeaway from this episode is everyone should go check out Mystic Warriors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Right? The more we talk about it, the more I'm thinking man, after this, I'm just going to go play some more Mystic Warriors. Sunset Riders 2, Mystic Warriors.
Yes.
All right. I think that's going to do it for this episode, though. So let us know what you thought of this more focused style of episode. I think it was a lot of fun to be so we could kind of dial in and just talk about this theme specifically. And also let us know if you weren't aware of Mystic Warriors. And if you give it a shot, I'd love to hear what you think. So I know Coury hadn't heard of it, as we said, and now you're a firm believer. So
yes. Instead, and also people should join the DF Patreon so that they could come into the DF Retro channel and tell us about it on Discord.
Oh yes, exactly. That's the way. All right, gentlemen. Thanks as always for joining me. This is the DF Retro Super Show. We're always happy to be here, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Take care.